Hello, this is Billy Core from the Nostalgia Mall, and today we need to have a little discussion. You see, there comes a time in many vintage computer collectors' lives where they must have to start making compromises and sacrifices, particularly when it comes to their choice on monitors for their vintage computer. Now, the general consensus on this is that if you've got the room and you have the money, by all means go with an old-fashioned CRT monitor like this 17-inch Packard Bell monitor right here. And I agree, the CRT, you cannot beat that for a vintage computer. They have good quality on them depending on what screen you get. They have that good retro charm, and many games just look very crystal clear on them, especially if you get a nice flat one like a Trinitron, which I also have. Those look really, really nice. However, there's a problem with these, a couple of problems. One, they're getting kind of hard to find these days because they're so old and nobody wants to deal with them anymore, especially at thrift stores. And two, they're enormous. They take up space. I mean, I don't know if this is going to work or not, but look how far back that monitor goes to the back there. And they're heavy. And if you have a very cheap and poorly made desk, they could pose a great disaster risk for your desk. So, those problems among other problems is why sometimes you need to sacrifice your CRT monitor and go with one of these. A somewhat modern day LCD screen that you would find on a more modern computer. And the nice thing about LCDs is that most of them still have VGA inputs, which is what most vintage computers from the 90s use, so a monitor like this would work just fine. And the big thing is they're lightweight and don't take up any room hardly at all. Compare the depth of the CRT we just saw to the depth of this. Yeah, a lot thinner, huh? And this was the conundrum I was in recently. You see, here in this office I can only have one desk out here, and it's this L-shaped desk. So I have to keep all my vintage computers and my modern computer on this one desk. And that gets very, very cluttered quite quickly. So, and I need room to do other stuff with on this desk, and a giant CRT, at one time before I got this monitor, which we'll talk about in a second, I had two CRTs on this one desk. One of them being that Trinitron we recently saw that was like 19 inches big. That's quite a big monitor, and while it did fit on this desk, it really didn't leave me much breathing room on this desk. And don't get me wrong, that monitor has a beautiful picture. It looks beautiful. It's an excellent monitor. But I just didn't have the room to use it. Now don't worry, I did not get rid of it. I just have it out in the shed right now in storage for future use. But this monitor right here is definitely the way to go for me from now on for this setup. Now onto the monitor itself. When I decided to get an LCD screen for my vintage computer setup, I didn't want to get a more modern widescreen monitor that you find nowadays, like this one on my main computer, because the aspect ratio, it gets all skewed out because it's 16:9, and these old computers output 4:3 ratios, and they're just too modern looking. So, and I also had other 4:3 monitors, like the one for my Dimension 2350 right here, and this screen that came with my Anstel Dimension 8200. Both of them really good monitors, but they're not beige. This one is beige. and it matches beautifully with computers like this Gateway 2000 right here. So what I did was I went on eBay and just did a search for monitors, LCD monitors, 4x3, and of course most of them weren't beige, but this one appeared, and it's one that I'd kind of been wanting for a while now. This is a Gateway FPD1510 LCD monitor, manufactured in August of 2001. And it's 4x3, it's beige, and it's still, and despite it being not a CRT, it still has a nice retro aesthetic, which is really, really nice. And the big thing, it doesn't take up a whole bunch of room on this desk, which leaves me a lot more breathing room. This monitor also has a DVI input, but the computers I have connected to this, while a couple of them do have DVI outputs, the KVM switch I'm using with this setup is VGA only, and it's just not going to work out for that. But I could use that someday, and it's pretty cool because 2001 was pretty early for DVI, and I think DVI came out in like 1999. I don't think I really saw it until the mid-2000s, I think, but anyway, enough about DVI. But this is why I chose this monitor. It has all the convenience of a modern-day LCD monitor with the retro aesthetic of a older monitor. And currently, it's displaying the output for my Gateway 2000, and I have it KVM'd with 3 other computers. There's the Carolina Flyer, my Windows 98 box set is, and Windows updated for daylight savings time. That's good. And this is running at 1024 by 768, which is this monitor's native resolution. Have it KVM'd with the Dell Dimension 8200, which is running Windows 2000. And I even have it connected to the Dell XPS 720, which is running, well, it's running both Windows XP and Windows 7, but this is obviously Windows XP being shown right here. And that's another nice thing about this monitor. Since I have 2 somewhat more modern computers, like the 8200 and the XPS 720 connected to this, which are from the 2000s, from the XP era, it kind of complements this monitor a little bit better because these are more modern computers, and XP just looks a little bit better on an LCD. As a matter of fact, this computer, the XPS 720, is also running Windows 7, and Windows 7 just doesn't look right on a CRT. I'm just weird about that. Don't ask. And back to the Gateway 2000, which is running Windows 95. And Windows 95, of course, it would look better on a CRT and less blurry on a CRT. It still looks pretty good on an LCD. Of course, I have it only at 640 by 480 just because that's a little bit more era appropriate for this computer. And so yeah, I am very, very happy with this decision. Again, I know the best way to go for vintage computers as far as monitors are concerned are old school CRTs, but sometimes you just come to a point where you just got to make that sacrifice and move over to an LCD, and I'm pretty glad I did this. In fact, before I had this LCD here, I didn't have room to store random joysticks. So I'm now able to use joysticks on these computers now that I have spots to put them in. So I guess that's about it for this video. I know it was kind of short and kind of pointless, but I hope you enjoyed it nonetheless. Next week's video will be kind of similar to this as far as my vintage computer setup, because we will be getting rid of this old Gateway 2000 keyboard that I got earlier this year. It looks great, but it has a problem where the enter key likes to get stuck, and of course, since I'm recording, it works perfectly now. So we'll be looking at a new keyboard that I ordered last night off of eBay that is quite unique, and I think you guys will enjoy seeing that. So until next time, this is Billy Core signing off. Thank you for visiting the Nostalgia Mall. If you liked what you saw, please like, subscribe, and follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can also support me on Patreon if you would like. The link to all of these are down below. Until next time, this is Billy Core signing off.